Have you ever seen a movie or any other piece of media, whether it be a TV show or a video game, that has been unjustly reviled by a mass of people that you are willing to go out of your way to defend it for the brilliant masterpiece that it is? And believe me, my faithful viewers, I have plenty, but one of them has always been the case with me. I am, of course, talking about one of the greatest movies penned to the 21st century, Mad Max Fury Road. The fact that there are still people out there that exist who are willing to belittle a movie like this is mind-boggling to say the least. As without question, my pick for the best movie of 2015, which happens to be the very first year I started reviewing film on YouTube, Fury Road was the franchise comeback to end all franchise comebacks. A transcendental, majestic obelisk that took 30 years to make due to devastating and monetary delays, that it ended up towering over a vast territory known as the action genre against the likes of Terminator 2 and Die Hard. It was the kind of movie that gets made once in a lifetime, featuring some of the most peerless action sequences that have ever been put on the big silver screen. Cinematography that will drop your jaw so hard it will snap from its joints. Junkie XL delivering the best score that he has ever made in his entire career, a straightforward story that accomplishes so much with awesome character arcs between the two leads, and the glorious action from action movie genius George Miller at his apex. And it has a flamethrowing guitar player. And I know enough about Fury Road, so let us transition into today's subject. Okay, let me talk about one more thing about Fury Road, but don't worry, it relates to what I'm going to talk about next. One of the strongest movies, aside from the Road Warrior himself, Max Rokitansky, was Charlize Theron's character, Imperator Furiosa, a woman abducted as a child and given no choice but to serve Immortan Joe for her own survival in an effort to escape, along with Joe's breeders, to her home, the green place of many mothers. Like Max, she was a character that you wanted to get behind and have her succeed in her goals of finding redemption. And thanks to George Miller's script writing and characterization, she is now regarded as one of the greatest female characters and action heroines in all of fiction. Throughout the 15 years of writing Fury Road, George Miller created backstories for all of his characters, including Furiosa's, which ultimately led them to creating a screenplay dedicated to her character. And after almost a decade later, all of that work has paid off in today's subject, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Now, you're probably wondering to yourself, why did Miller decide to make a Furiosa spin-off prequel than a Mad Max sequel? Why did it take so long for him to make another film in the Mad Max franchise? Well, years after Fury Road's release, having the intention of making Furiosa and Fury Road back-to-back, George Miller and his production company, Kennedy Miller Mitchell, filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers for unpaid earnings after going under budget, whereas Warner Brothers thought otherwise, that they went over budget and they didn't follow any other requisites. The lawsuit went on for years, and whoever won the case and who is more to blame is ultimately for you to decide. But the point is, this led to massive delays for future sequels. And in spite of the delays, Furiosa is still a good movie. It's not a better action movie than Fury Road. Then again, I mean, what is? But the long-awaited origin story of one of cinema's ferocious action heroines is a tale that is worth awaiting to the gates of Valhalla, shiny and chrome. Broken up into 5 chapters, it tells us the fable of how Furiosa went from being an abducted child to Immortan Joe's Imperator. Taking place many years before Fury Road, Furiosa is kidnapped by a gang of bikers that are a part of a militaristic horde led by its leader, Dementus. After witnessing the death of her mother, Mary Jo Bassa, by Dementus's hands, she is kept prisoner until she spills the beans about where she came from, so that way Dementus and the rest of his army can take control of it for themselves. On a search for this place of abundance, Dementus's pursuit leads him to an even bigger prize, the Citadel, led by Immortan Joe. When tensions brew between the two factions, Furiosa is eventually taken in by Joe after a series of negotiations to cease down the escalation of war. From that point on, she trains as a warrior in secret, disguising herself as a war boy, a part of the V8 cult. With all of the training and rigorous wasteland battles that she gets herself into, Does she have what it takes to survive, get her vengeance on Dementis, and make it back home to where she once was? Well, according to Fury Road, 2 out of 3 ain't bad of an accomplishment. Let's start things off with something that deserves to be mentioned full stop. For every passing injury as the world keeps descending into a sand-ridden wasteland, George has a fantastic grasp of inviting us into a world full of psychotic, kooky rogues, warlords, bandits, and peaceful sanctuaries full of freedom fighters, outsiders, or those desperate trying to have a prosperous life in the apocalypse. In the case of Furiosa, George Miller's world-building capabilities are second to none, as he expands upon places that we may have heard of but never gone to in Fury Road, such as the Titanic refinery of Gastown and the Bullet Farm, which is just a gigantic quarry that is used to carve bullets and manufacture weaponry. It's also investing to see how Joe's transports and trade negotiations work with his comrade organizations, and Miller gives us a great idea of what the Citadel was like before Fury Road, with examples showing Joe's war boys using cranes from above to steal vehicles for their own mechanical needs, how Joe's wives used to be much more subservient to him, and how they would handle the resources in a time of crisis. It truly fleshes out the universe in a way that explains details that we haven't known in Fury Road. However, the world building comes at a price of retconning certain locations. For example, I'm impressed with the look and societal structure of the Green Place, where it resembles something of a dystopian Themyscira, minus Zeus's invisible barrier, as they operate under a matriarchy, but they see men as reliable for labor as they are for breeding. However, in Fury Road, as our crew exits the bog, after realizing it was in fact the Green Place, they encounter trees, a flat, muddy quagmire, circling crows and crowfishers, and a central pathway that passes across the area. In Furiosa, it is an environmentalist utopia. The Green Place is arranged of 2 places, one where it's a luscious tropical forest full of fruit, water, and vegetation, and the other where it's the homeland itself, where it's between a canyon and a rock bridge that is full of solar panels, windmills, and agricultural equipment. We could suggest that their equipment may have been stolen or if they relocated, but I'm still not sure about this retcon. Matching the quality of the world building, all of the performances are spot on. I cannot tell you a single performance that is bad or below par. Anya Taylor-Joy continues to impress me every time I see her on screen, whether it be for a satire like The Menu or a phenomenal Norse epic like The Northman. This go around, she does a remarkable job as Furiosa, though it doesn't match the fierce and intimidating acting of Charlize Theron. She still holds her ground as a woman desperate to escape while on the path of retribution. But I also gotta give props to Alila Brown as a young Furiosa, who, much like Anya Taylor-Joy, crushes it equally when she's acting dramatically and in silence. She truly captures the trauma of a young child who is witnessing the torture and the crucifixion of her own mother right before her eyes, and showing facial expressions of quiet, subtle anger, expressing potential vengeance that awaits her enemies. The Mad Max franchise has its fair share of extravagant, over-the-top villains, from the Toe Cutter to Lord Humongous to Immortan Joe. As Dementis, the military leader of the biker horde, Chris Hemsworth commits the ultimate crime of stealing entire scenes every time he makes an appearance. Much like his thunderous and comedic role as Thor in the MCU, his treacherous over-the-top performance commands presence and expands his acting capabilities, proving he has what it takes to play a maniacal, sadistic, and charismatic villain. He glues your eyes to the screen when he projects a speech through his microphone or when he tries to set an example to a victim. The movie also gives him a dark, albeit tragic, explanation for his madness and tyranny, and it all ties into the ending between him and Furiosa about the idea of vengeance and what it might do to a person, adding to the fact that they're in a fallen world that is so thematically and narratively sound and exceptionally executed. And of course, the brutes from Fury Road make their threatening return yet again. Some reprise their role, like John Howard as the people leader, Nathan Jones as the meat-headed muscle man, Rictus Erectus. However, others are played by different actors, one of whom is Lee Ji-hoon, who plays 2 characters, Rizdale Pell, who is Dementis' lieutenant, and more importantly, Fury Road's fantastic antagonist, Immortan Joe, being powerful and fearless as always. Now, we all know that the original role was played by Hugh Keays-Byrne, God rest his soul, or as he would put it, may he ride into Valhalla shiny and chrome. But Hume's performance as a younger Immortan Joe is so terrific. He nails the intimidating voice, the conniving, Viking-inspired wit for battle strategies, and the stature of a godlike warlord, unfazed by rivaling wasteland leaders like Dementis, who attempt to conquer all that he has built from the ground up. You want to know how good his performance is? In a particular scene, Dementis is exchanging words with Immortan Joe, and Joe is just looking at him. He's not moving, he doesn't twitch, he doesn't even blink. As if to convey the non-verbal message of, you think you're better than me? You think you scare me and my men? You're nothing compared to me, pal. The final supporting actors are just as good. Charlie Fraser as Mary Jo Bassa is terrific, and Tom Burke as Praetorian Jack is also solid. As a stoic yet battle-hardened commander who he himself also wants a life away from chaos and war. Visually, the movie is irresistibly gorgeous. Miller's gift for imagination is undeniable, but his special way to make them creative is his use of visual effects. And at first, you would notice some effects that would appear to be a bit wonky that could have been composited and animated better, such as fire on a character when they're trying to extinguish it from their costume, or blatantly noticeable green screen as characters are biking through a narrow pass. Apart from that, the models of the vehicles of the biker horde, from Dementis' motorcycle chariot to the Citadel's very first war rig, have so much detail and embellishment on them. And you have an extensive montage of how the war rig was invented, and it's so fascinating to watch. Though Mad Max's prideful attributes of the entire franchise are its action sequences. The action set pieces are not as insane or high octane as Fury Road's set pieces that infused a combination of practical stunt work with mind-blowing special effects. That's not to say that they aren't great set pieces in their own right. Some of the best moments in the entire film happen in the third and fourth chapter. One, for example, is a 15-minute battle whereas one of Dementis' former allies, the Octoboss, is raiding the rig for its own supplies while dealing with a platoon of war boys, and the other being a 10-minute or so ambush scene at the Bullet Farm. Though it doesn't match up to, let's say, Fury Road's opening chase sequence that was so phenomenal, it still serves as entertaining moments of adrenaline-fueled action. However, what kept my interest of all was at the last act of the movie, where the People Eater has this incredible speech about all of the wars throughout history, and he finally builds up to him talking about the 40-day wasteland war, whereas Immortan Joe and his army confront Dementis' legion. The unfortunate part is that the whole war is shot through a montage, and all I thought to myself was, I know this movie is about Furiosa, but why couldn't we see that? That would have been freaking awesome! Could you imagine a scene of post-apocalyptic steampunk vehicular warfare? It would be like Lawrence of Arabia on steroids, and with cars. Miller, I know these movies are a pain to make, but if this movie makes its budget back, please put this in your next movie. I need it. Anyways, one of the final positives that I have for this movie is that the cinematography, without a doubt, it's incredible. Miller still has it in him to utilize the intensity and the beauty of the cinematography, from the ferocious close-ups and beautiful wide shots that show the scope of an action scene. The sound design in Furiosa is what the ear would find delicious. From the roaring and ignitions of the engines, the collisions, the clanging, the smashing, and destruction of all of the vehicles is mixed to perfection, and none of it feels artificial and phony. To wrap things up, if there's anything negative that I have to say about Furiosa, My particular grievances, including some CGI compositing and retconning in the world building, specifically have to do with writing issues in the storytelling. Now, the difficulties don't stem from the structure and pacing. After all, I think the episodic, chapter-based approach to his Odyssey, quite like Miller's previous film, 3,000 Years of Longing, works much to his benefit. In each chapter, though some are longer than others, are organized in a way that flows seamlessly. The problems in my book lie within the third act of the film. Not gonna give away any plot points due to spoilers, but let's just say that it all has to do with how Furiosa amputated her arm and how she was able to return back to the Citadel. It all plays out in a lucky string of events to get her where she needs to go, and it felt like a point where the writers were trapped in a corner and they didn't know how to get their main character out of a situation. To generate a gaming analogy, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is like great downloadable content to an already phenomenal video game. It may not be a picture that ranks alongside the titans of action movie Olympus, but the special ingredients that were from Miller's previous Mad Max films, such as tight storytelling, sort of, gratifying character work, top-notch production, and gracious action set pieces are still present and accounted for. The thing that kind of worries me a little bit is whether or not this will be the final Mad Max film to exist. Given its box office numbers and its production and financial delays from the lawsuits, I'm afraid it might come to that reality. Unless you give this movie your time and your money.
You're right, Luke. Maybe I should go see it on streaming.
No! Don't be that guy! Go see this hypnotically satisfying beast on the biggest screen you can find, because we may never get action movies like this ever again. But until then, may I find you in the glorious gates of Valhalla for my next review. My name is Luke Nukem. Redneck!